Tesla, obviously, takes me to a certain extent to what some would say is the brand damage done by your government service. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Has some pros and cons.
There have been some pros and cons. We sat here 2 years ago upstairs, and you famously said when I asked you about this very subject, I don't care. I'm going to say what I want to say, and so be it. Do you regret that?
No.
No. Why not?
I believe that we want to live in a free society where people are allowed to say what they want to say within reasonable bounds. Like, you can't advocate for the murder of somebody. But free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy. That's why it's the First Amendment.
Without a doubt. But I guess my question is more about your work at Doge, for example. Was that worth it? To the extent you are now, Elon, you were a somewhat divisive figure 2 years ago, but now you really are. I mean, there are people who love you, but there are a lot of people who dislike you, some of whom were your customers. And I wonder, was it worth the undertaking at Doge and everything else that you've done and how outspoken you've been in terms of the things you believe in to antagonize so many potential buyers and or users of things like a robo-taxi?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, what I've learned is that legacy media propaganda is very effective at making people believe things that aren't true.
What would an example of that be?
That I'm a Nazi, for example.
Right.
And how many legacy media publications, talk shows, whatever, try to claim that I was a Nazi because of some random hand gesture at a rally where all I said was that my heart goes out to you, and I was talking about space travel. And yet the legacy media promoted that as though that was a deliberate Nazi gesture, when in fact every politician, any public speaker who's spoken for any length of time has made the exact same gesture. And yet there's still people out there, and I've never harmed a single person.
No, listen, you know what, Elon? I wasn't.
Now you asked for an example.
I wasn't even going to talk to you about it because, in fact, I do know a number of people who are close to you, and I called them afterwards, and all of them, to a person, were like, "No way, no way."
Of course not.